Snoop Dogg is a legend in the rap game who survived beefing with Suge Knight, beat a murder charge, and ended up buying Death Row Records. But did he snitch to make it to the top? There have always been crazy rumors flying around, and today we're breaking down why some people think one of the most respected OGs in the industry is actually a rat. Snoop Dogg has been in the game for decades with almost no dirt on his name. He came up in Long Beach repping the Rollin' 20s Crips and was booked on cocaine possession back in 1989. Hopping in the booth helped him leave the streets behind, but some people think he flipped completely and started working with the feds. 6ix9ine is the most famous rat in hip-hop. He was facing life behind bars until he flipped on his old crew and told the cops everything. A lot of people thought 6ix9ine's career would be dead after he got exposed as a snitch, but the trial and everything just put his name in the spotlight even more. Everyone was talking about 6ix9ine when he got out of prison, and Snoop called out the situation and said, "They gotta stop pushing this. F 6ix9ine and everybody pushing his line right now." 6ix9ine obviously didn't care about getting called out, and he clapped back by posting a video where Suge Knight implied that Snoop had snitched in the past.
I mean, Snoop was on, we did a murder trial for him, but then he was on probation. Then he got caught with 2 ounces of marijuana. Then he got caught with guns. And each time it's nothing. They're not gonna violate him. Because for the street guys know what I'm talking about. There's no puzzle. I mean, if you get a guy that constantly getting in trouble and never gonna come to prison, that's because he's an informant. He's a rat, a snitch,
Then he hopped on IG to ask everyone if he should expose all of the rappers who had cooperated with the cops. He even tagged Snoop in the comments and said, "Hey sir, let's chat." Snoop hasn't been in the streets for a long time, but he responded to 6ix9ine and said,
"Rat boy, you really better leave me alone. I ain't the one. Fuck with the dog. Nothing nice. Bitch."
6ix9ine wasn't backing down though, and he clowned Snoop for not even mentioning the paperwork that allegedly proves he snitched. 6ix9ine had posted some alleged paperwork from 1998 where Snoop got ran up on by some Death Row goons and ended up working with the cops. According to the alleged report, it all went down at the Universal Amphitheater. Snoop was allegedly chilling when 4 or 5 dudes from Death Row came up and pressed him. One of them hit Snoop in the face, and that's when he ran away and went straight to the cops. The situation started getting sketchy when 60 dudes came out of the backstage area and started coming for Snoop. But the cops called for backup and everything cooled off when over 40 more police showed up, ready to handle the Death Row dudes. According to the report, Snoop thanked the cops for saving him and said his life was in danger ever since he left Death Row. Then he even told him that Suge Knight is the one who's behind Tupac's death. Tupac getting shot is what really sparked the beef between Snoop and Suge, but they were already having some major issues before then. While Tupac and Suge were going to war against the East Coast, Snoop wanted peace with everyone. He didn't want anyone to get hurt over the situation, but showing love to the East Coast almost got him killed. When Snoop first linked up with Dre and Suge Knight in the early Death Row days, he was all about the gangster rap image. He came in and helped Dre create his classic album, The Chronic, and rap fans couldn't wait for Snoop to drop his first solo project. Snoop went from the trenches of Long Beach to becoming a superstar overnight, but the streets weren't done with him yet. While Snoop was still working on his debut album, he was chilling outside of his apartment with some homies. A dude from the area named Philip Merriam pulled up on him and allegedly showed Snoop that he was strapped up. Then he pulled off with his crew. According to some reports, Merriam had already put a gun to Snoop's head at a gas station, but he wasn't gonna let anyone just walk all over him like that. Snoop and his homies hopped in his Jeep to chase Merriam down, but nobody expected the day to end with murder. Snoop and his crew caught up to Merriam at a local park and they started yelling back and forth. The situation got so heated that Merriam tried to up his strap and shoot Snoop, but Snoop Dogg's bodyguard was ready. Before he could even get a shot off, Snoop's bodyguard killed Merriam. Snoop and the bodyguard were both booked for murder, and he spent 2 years fighting the case, not knowing if he was going to spend the rest of his life behind bars or not. And when he was finally acquitted on the charges, Snoop decided to change everything and leave the streets behind him for good. He wanted to stop promoting violence, but he was about to find out that Death Row wasn't the place for peace. Snoop, Tupac, Suge, and a bunch of other Death Row dudes were in New York, and when Snoop went on Hot 97, he told Angie Martinez that Biggie and Diddy were his homeboys. He went back to the hotel where the Death Row crew was, but everyone just iced him out. The next day, they all hopped on a private jet to fly back to LA, but Snoop thought he was in so much danger that he grabbed a fork and a knife to protect himself in case something went down during the flight. Pac was shot and killed just a few days later, and that's when everything really popped off. Suge went to jail after violating his probation, but the drama didn't stop there. Snoop split off from Death Row and said he was working against the devil. He signed a deal with No Limit Records, but Suge didn't just let him walk away. According to rumors, Suge put a bag on Snoop's head from behind bars, but back then, Snoop was rolling with some heavy security. Even though he had security, the Death Row goons still allegedly caught him that night at the Universal Amphitheater. And the head of Death Row Security, a dude named Reggie Wright Jr., also backed up the story about Snoop running to the police and telling.
We was about to get him. Took off running like a little bitch, straight to the police, where they admit in their statement to the police, where they had saw the police at, they ran straight to the police.
According to some people, Snoop was terrified of Suge and didn't want any smoke. But at the same time, he was airing them out on tracks like Pimp Slap and sending shots like, "This nigga's a bitch like his wife. Suge Knight's a bitch, and that's on my life. And I'ma let the whole world see, cause you fucked up the industry, and that's on me." The situation looked like it wouldn't end until one of them died. But Snoop and Suge ended up squashing the beef in 2005. Snoop said Master P from No Limit Records helped save him because he knew that Snoop wasn't ready for war. He took him out of the West Coast and showed Snoop that he could go a different route. And if it wasn't for that, Snoop might not still be around today. But by the time Suge and Snoop squashed the beef, Death Row was pretty much over anyways. And the last nail in the coffin came when Suge got locked up for killing a dude named Terry Carter while Straight Outta Compton was being filmed. The label was taken over by a few different companies and looked like it would never really come back. But last year, Snoop announced that he bought it from Blackstone Music Group. It had been decades since everything went down, and last year, Snoop dropped his first album on the label in 26 years. Suge and Snoop have been cool for years, but it looks like the drama might be ready to pop off again. After Suge allegedly put the green light on Snoop and everything else that happened between them, nobody expected them to squash the beef. But somehow they were able to move on, and Snoop even wrote a track for Suge a few years back called Let Bygones Be Bygones and said, "You always said I'd be a star in the game. Now I got a star on the fucking Walk of Fame. I hopped out and sea-walked on my star on the fucking Walk of Fame. In that motherfucking Death Row chain, nigga." And at the end of the track, Snoop gave Suge his flowers and said, "Death Row Records, man. We did that shit, nigga. Suge Knight, real nigga, man. Think about all the great shit you did, nigga. Let bygones be bygones." With all their issues behind them, it looked like Snoop buying Death Row was a win for everybody. But it turns out that Suge doesn't feel the same way. In an interview from prison with TMZ, Suge claimed that Snoop was only able to buy the label because of bankruptcy fraud. According to him,
"I didn't lose my company by doing anything wrong. They went in and a lawyer didn't show up, and they got a default judgment. I settled the judgment. They turned around and said I didn't settle the judgment, but they committed bankruptcy fraud, which we just found out for sure last week."
It's not clear if Suge really has anything to stand on legally, but right now, Snoop isn't too pressed about the issue. Just a few days after Suge's interview, Snoop went on Big Boy's podcast and gave him credit for changing his life. He said,
"Because I love that man, he changed my life. And it gets overshadowed by the negative energy that was projected by him and the stupid shit he did when he was on the streets and just the picture that they paint as far as half the man. But if you know the whole man, it was more greatness in him than anything."
Nobody knows what's gonna go down next between them, but the internet is already talking about Snoop snitching rumors again. If Suge decides to go after Snoop over the Death Row situation, some people think he'll go to the cops for protection and maybe even give him more info about Tupac's death. But besides the alleged paperwork from the 90s, there's never been any proof that Snoop ratted on anyone. Suge and some Death Row people have thrown dirt on his name before, but you can't really trust what people say when they're in the middle of a wild beef.